What it do, y'all? Hope you're all having a great day. It's Chuck Nasty here again today, and today I want to talk about the Dallas Mavericks. Last night they defeated the Heat by 9 points, traveling on the road. Phenomenal game. It was, Mavs down 9-10 points in the mid-third quarter, and then they stormed back and actually took a 10-point lead not heading into the fourth, but with about 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Heat, of course, were going to come back and fight hard, but then Luka showed exactly who he is. He was a magician out there. And really today, I just want to talk about the direction that this team is heading, but also talk about their potential and just get some thoughts out on the Dallas Mavericks. So today, shorter video, because again, I'm just going to talk about the Dallas Mavericks, but just to talk briefly about some of the trades and then heading into looking forward. I guess just addressing it now, Luka Doncic is an absolute magician on the court. The ability to draw a double team, but then also make the smart pass. He's a playmaker, but also has built his game up to become an elite level scorer that's virtually unguardable at times. Now, I'll be the first to admit that he hasn't had the best shooting percentages, but of course you're going to have that from a dude that's putting up, over 20 shots a game. 27 points, 9 rebounds, 9 assists on the year. Definitely in the contention for at least MVP discussions at this point. I haven't heard his name thrown around a ton, but I think that he's definitely slept on in the MVP conversation, because if you take him away from this team, I do think that they are marginally a much, much worse team. Now, with all that being said, there are a couple players I want to talk about, not named Luka Doncic, that have played a vital role for this team. Because if you recall, maybe early January to before December, maybe, they started out the year like sub 500. They were fighting for like a 10 seed. Earlier in the year, and granted, while you knew that Luka was going to heal up and it was going to eventually start gelling together, you definitely had that feeling of like, okay, when are we going to see it? And we're seeing it now. Mavericks coming in at 34-24. They only have one more game in it before the All-Star break, and it's home against the Pelicans, which I anticipate will be a win, or should be a win for them. So figuring a win, 35-24 heading into the All-Star break, looking at around the 5-6 seed. I definitely think that in the last, stretch of games, in the last 10 per se, they've looked really, really good. And they haven't really had a loss that's been like, oh, they weren't there. They lost to the Clippers a few days ago, and that was definitely a close game, and a game that they probably should have won. But it's definitely tough to beat a well-coached team twice within the stretch of a weekend. So again, we need context, and that's a big thing, is to look for context. Now, Luka, in his 4th year in the league, putting up these numbers is incredible. But talking about some of the other names, I guess I'll talk about the Kristaps trade next. Kristaps and Luka weren't exactly the best of friends. They had their disagreements both on the court and off the court. And while we didn't hear about necessarily a ton, there were definitely those talks of like, okay, is this going to work? Is Luka and Kristaps? You feel like that's not really the combo that gets you over the hump and past a first-round exit. And so by getting rid of Kristaps and getting in Dinwiddie and Bertans, I was definitely hesitant at first of this trade, just because in the moment I was like, Dinwiddie and Bertans aren't really players that I would put as like higher caliber players on those Wizards teams, and I would have liked to see maybe a better pickup for Dallas. But at the same time too, even just looking at last night's game in Bertans and Dinwiddie's debuts, they both played their role very, very well. Shooting 50% from the field for Bertans, and he had a couple buckets down the stretch and one off a steal to end the third quarter that just really gave them that momentum to open the fourth quarter on that run. And then looking as well at Spencer Dinwiddie, while he only had 4 points, he had 5 assists and a steal coming off the bench. And so it's just definitely encouraging to see Dinwiddie playing a role in a win, especially over a Heat team that, as I was rambling about the other day, is scary. Now, the Heat, context-wise, did not have Tyler Hero with a right knee contusion, but to have your 5 starters in and to give up that lead is definitely not encouraging for the Heat, especially at home. But if anything, it just reinforces that this Dallas team is scary. And so looking ahead, I also need to talk about Jalen Brunson, because Jalen Brunson has been a guy that I've wanted to come to Detroit. I've been kind of vocal about, like, hopeful about that, but that dude is going to get paid this year. He has been playing phenomenal down the stretch. I think he had 19 last night. He's averaging about 16 points on the season. And so I don't think that number does justice to the role that he plays. When Luka gets sent with a double-triple team and, again, virtually impossible to guard, Jalen Brunson is a playmaker that gets his shot, who can hit a three. Maybe not like a super proficient three-point shooter, but he can get his buckets when they matter the most. And he's also a playmaker, averaging over 5 assists a game. He gets steals and really just has a solid impact. And if you saw last night, he hit that corner three to basically ice the game when the Miami Heat were trying to hang in there. So for me personally, the Dallas Mavericks are definitely gelling together at the right time. What I think is going to be interesting looking ahead, obviously Luka will be playing in the All-Star game. How will Dallas look when they go on the road to some of the Western Conference teams that are solid? Just looking ahead, they have a road trip at Golden State and against the Lakers. I think we're going to learn a lot about those teams just with how they stack up against the talent on the rosters. Granted, I mentioned before that the Lakers roster is dog shit, but at the same time too, they do have that talent, and I'm going to be curious to see how they match up with Anthony Davis and LeBron and Russ after the All-Star break, just because of all of the question marks that I have around this team. Now, we've seen 2 straight first-round exits for these Dallas Mavericks in the last 2 years, both losses coming to the Los Angeles Clippers. Thinking out loud, I feel like this team has a chance this year to definitely not exit the first round. They have as good of a chance as anyone to make the second round. And we're seeing a level of play from Luka Doncic that rivals LeBron on those Cavs teams in the late 2000s. Now, that may be getting ahead of myself, and I know we haven't seen him, win much yet, but we have to keep in mind the context. This dude is the MVP of his team, and in my opinion, is the most valuable asset on a team that we're seeing in the league right now, in the sense that every time he has the ball, he's trying to get a bucket one way or another, and he, more importantly, is actually getting them and actually getting the buckets, getting his teammates involved. And just to shout out a few role players that I think have played critical roles down the stretch, as I mentioned, Jalen Brunson, the best number 2 that we're seeing in the West right now, at least in regard to like expectation versus payout of how he's played, the consistency he's played with. We also see Tim Hardaway Jr. and Dorian Finney-Smith. Now, Dorian Finney-Smith is very hot and cold, in my opinion. He got a 4-year contract extension, has just been a little bit less consistent since he got that contract. But again, he steps up when he needs to. On a night, a few nights ago when I bet on him over on the points and it didn't hit, I was very frustrated. But we have to keep in mind, even last night, he had like 14. And so he steps up when he needs to, and he'll take the shots when he does need to, but he's a guy that looks to get his teammates involved as well, and that's super undervalued in the league right now. Reggie Bullock and Maxi Kleber both playing great roles. Maxi Kleber is a fun player to watch just because he's that three-point threat. He's going to pop it, and just a great stretch 4. And Dwight Powell as well has really been playing his role. Now, he had 5 fouls last night, was kind of limited on his minutes, but you take that into context too, with like dealing with the foul trouble. That's the one thing that I potentially see as a hindrance is, can Luka play an entire playoff game of basketball without fouling out, without getting those 3 fouls early in the first half, or the 4th foul early in the second half? Like, I feel like I've seen that a lot in the games that I have tuned in for the Dallas Mavericks. And so I'm curious to see, can he keep it, clean? Can he play that solid defense? And that's the thing I haven't even touched on. I've been talking all offense, but these Dallas Mavericks are committing to playing defense. This is the best defense I've seen from Luka since he's been in the league. So can he keep that going when the playoffs get tough and when they stop calling as many, cheap fouls? Is he going to be able to, play without fixating on whether or not a foul was called against him or on him? And that's really my only gripe with Luka is, and take this how you will, but like, I have a Luka jersey right here, so it's not like I'm hating on the dude for it. But for me personally, it is a little bit less encouraging to watch a player that's like always barking at the refs to try and get the foul calls. And granted, we've seen it from LeBron for a long time, and it's just a part of the game now. Devin Booker does the same thing. But as a fan, like, you really, at least for me personally, I prefer to see a player who like does get a foul and is like, yep, that's me. Yep, I was the dude who fouled him there. Now, granted, you can't always do that. And when you're getting fouls and playing as tough of defense as Luka is, you know you're going to get foul calls. And so maybe you don't want to volunteer and say like, yeah, I did foul him, because that just gives them ammunition and encouragement that he was hacking. But I don't know. It's a little bit less encouraging. But looking ahead to the Dallas Mavericks outlook for this season, I can see this team as high as a 3 seed and as low as an 8 seed. A lot of that's going to depend on Luka's health after the All-Star break and maintaining consistency. Do the Dallas Mavericks try and make a push for a higher seed? Do they try and rest Luka a little bit because he's going to be playing such heavy minutes when the playoffs come? Again, all questions that will be answered in the weeks and months to come, but the Dallas Mavericks are a team that I'm really high on, and they almost feel like a Hawks team last year. Granted, there was less hype around the Hawks, and they kind of surprised everyone. These Dallas Mavericks and Luka do catch headlines from time to time because of the magician that Luka Doncic is, but I think that with the budding play of Jalen Brunson, Dorian Finney-Smith, Reggie Bullock, Dwight Powell playing their roles, if you can get Dinwiddie and Bertans playing well off the bench, I just think that this is a team to be reckoned with come playoff time, and it'll be really interesting to see if they can hit the shots down the stretch. A lot of their losses I've seen have been when their role players couldn't get shots because they'll send 2-3 people at Luka, dude wide open in the corner, and it's a brick three. But then more importantly in those wins, that's when they do hit those shots. So there's a lot contingent on whether or not Luka's teammates can actually hit their shots. But if you are a Dallas Mavericks fan, and if you are keeping track with Luka and hoping the best when the playoffs do come, I think you're encouraged. And I think this is the year with the best chance, at least thus far, for the Mavericks to make a push past the first round. You're probably going to get a matchup against, say, like the Jazz, the Nuggets, potentially even the Grizzlies if the Grizzlies were to slip or Mavs were to jump. Hell, you could even see a matchup against, like, I don't know, maybe like the Timberwolves or something. Like, I definitely see Dallas having their best chance to make a post-first round exit. But do I see them as a team that could put together a title run? Honestly, it's going to come down to how does Luka play. He is the MVP, and we're seeing that. Not MVP of the league, but he's the MVP of his team. And post All-Star break, it's a top-heavy Western Conference. Can they stack up against a fully healthy Warriors squad? Can they stack up against a fully healthy Suns team where they have Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, DeAndre Ayton? Like, can they stack up with their roster? Now, I don't necessarily think so. I would be quick to pick the Suns in, say, 6 against this Dallas squad in like a second-round matchup, but First, like, I'm looking so far ahead, and I probably am setting unrealistic expectations, but if you're a Mavs fan, you're feeling encouraged, and you're in love with Luka in this moment, upsetting a Heat team on the road, definitely exciting down the stretch. But those are my thoughts on the Dallas Mavericks. Leave a comment. Where do you see Dallas finishing this year? Do you see them maintaining health, and what are some players on the team that you think are going to be vital down the stretch? Thanks again for watching, and hope you have a great rest of your day. Love you.